Jazz, a day of music, engagement, and celebration featuring top Billboard charting saxophonist Carl Cox. And the professional musicians who are accompanying him, and they all will be introduced later on. The genesis of this event began 3 years ago with the late Earl Exum, Al Taylor, and yours truly. We wanted an event that would give the police department an opportunity to foster relationships in the community in a unique way. Now in its third year, WeHa United in Jazz is the answer. Music, especially jazz, has a unique way of breaking down barriers and leaving you with a sense of joy. And that is our mission today. This event is made possible through a state grant that was shepherded by West Hartford State Representative Tammy Exum and administered by the Bridge Family Center. A special thank to our planning committee that includes Megan Pulte. Megan, thank you. Chris Dalton of the Bridge Family Center, Renee McHugh of the town of West Hartford. Renee is in a cruise in the Caribbean right now, so I think she got the better of the two options. Maybe. Khalil Austin Griffin, president of WASCO, and WASCO is the West Hartford African American Social and Cultural Organization, and the great Al Taylor, president of ACT Jams Productions and the founder and the chairman of the Grass City Jazz Fest. Also with us today is Gretchen Levitz and her team from the West Hartford Prevention Partnership. Wave in the back. If you have an opportunity, please stop by their table for free popcorn and cotton candy. I haven't had cotton candy since last year. And to learn about their projects and resources. That being said, I'm going to turn over the mic. It's my pleasure to introduce my man, the Big Al Taylor. We've been friends for almost 30 years or more. He's responsible for assembling his talented musicians for today's show. Al, again, is the president of ACT Jams Productions. He's a Waterbury born and raised. His wonderful wife, Helen, is here. I'm going to get him off the pressure on you. Helen, raise your hand with your camera. She's missed everything, and she's the one that yells at me all the time to get my stuff together, and I listen. Right now, Al's going to come up and tell us about our featured artists. Al Taylor.
Let's give it up for Chief Vern Riddick, ladies and gentlemen. Come on, family, let's give it up. Because as he said, without Vern and Earl Exum, this wouldn't have happened. But I'm so glad it happened because it's a beautiful thing, right? And those who was here last year? We got some familiar faces. Any more familiar faces back there? Okay, last year and year before. All right. Megan Pulte's back there. Hey, Megan. She's one of the committee members who's worked very hard and diligently for this. And an important part of today's event is to connect with our community through music and share experiences by asking these amazing musicians about their work, education, and their life's journey. If you are an up-and-coming musician or simply curious, this is a wonderful opportunity to ask questions. But first, let me introduce them to you. To my right, to your left, on keys is Damian Bennett. Damian, okay. On drums behind me is my man Mario Crew. To your right, my left on bass is Charles Baldwin. And right here, featured artist today is Carl Cox. So let's give him a big round of applause. Now, these guys have been on many stages in their careers. They currently tour with Maysa. Are you guys familiar with Maysa, the artist? Okay. Carl also tours with Incognito, plays with Gerald Veasley. I've seen Charles with everybody, right, Charles? Everyone. And Damien also plays with with Maysa, right? Mark? He plays with everybody too. These guys are world-renowned musicians, and they're here in West Hartford, right here in Blueback Square, okay? Now, I'll tell you a little bit about Carl. Carl can be seen performing nationally abroad with a variety of musical icons, including Smokey Robinson, that's another one, Incognito, Gerald Veasley, Maysa, and many more. His expertise on the saxophone can be heard on a variety of major Grammy Award-winning recordings as well as live performances on national radio. Many of his solo career singles can also be heard on XM radio. Do you guys have Sirius XM radio here? Yes? Do you listen to Watercolors? Channel 66? Yes. Well, that's where you can hear a lot of Carl's music. Carl grew up in Deptford, New Jersey, where he currently teaches high school music and shares his passion for performance with his students. He receives his bachelor's degree in saxophone performance and master's in education at the University of Arts in Philadelphia. Shortly after graduating, he began to receive calls for touring acts for playing in various jam sessions around the area, leading to a great deal of recording, television appearances, and tours in the past 20 years. Now, do you guys have any questions for these musicians on the stage today? This is a Q&A part, and we want you to get involved and partake and ask questions, and I'm sure that these guys will answer the best way they can. Do we have a question? Youngsters, do we have a question? Chief?
How early in the musicians' lives did they realize this is something they wanted to do?
Did you guys hear that question? How early did you realize in your lives that this is something that you wanted to do? Who wants to take that one?
Can't hear him out. Can't.
Yeah. So the question is, how early on did we realize that this music was something that we wanted to do? For me, it was immediately. I had started playing flute when I was 8 years old. So literally, as soon as I got a sound out the flute, I knew that's what I wanted to do.
When I was about 5 years old, I knew I wanted to play an instrument. And then when I was 13, I figured out I wanted to play the bass. And then when I was about 26 or 27, I figured out that I wanted to do it for a living.
So, I have a funny story about this actually. Because when I started, my grandfather played sax, and it's like, in 4th grade, you get a chance to play. And in 4th grade, you learn from your band director, and you learn from the musicians in school districts, right? So that's why it was so important to have music in the schools, because I was one of those products. But for me, I started on trumpet, and my band director said, yeah, I don't think you got what it takes to be a trumpet player. And I'm in 4th grade after a month thinking, all right, I'm gonna give this up. So he says, hey, let's try trombone. Maybe you'll lock in the trombone. Well, I do about a month of that, and then I realized, I'm not so good at that either. So I'm thinking, this ain't in my future. And my band director was laughing. He goes, oh, not this kid again. He's coming back. Here he comes. What do you want to play now? And I said, well, my grandfather plays sax. He told me to tell you to play sax. He said, nah, I got too many saxophones. So we pushed and pushed, and then finally he said, yeah, all right, you get a sax and I'll teach you. And it felt like home. As soon as I picked that instrument up, it felt like it was immediately embraced by myself, and it felt easy to me. And within a month, I was better than all the kids in elementary school, and I just felt like I was like, okay, this is something I need to do. So you never know what's going to call you. There might be some amazing musicians out here that don't even know it yet.
Great answer, Carl. Great answer. Thank you guys for sharing. I didn't know that about you, Charles. Oh, you did. Okay, all right, good stuff. Do we have any more questions? Come on now, come on. Yes.
How difficult is it to travel?
How difficult is to travel? But Damien has a lot to say about this one.
I remember being a teenager. I was probably 13, 14 years old, and hearing some people talking about someone not being physically well enough to travel. And to me, I thought it just sounded crazy, because I'm like, oh, you just get to the train station, you sit down for like 4 hours or whatever, you know what I mean? At some point, I started to travel for work. You know what I mean? Getting on a plane, or actually getting on a train at like 4 o'clock in the morning to go to like Baltimore or DC to get on an airplane that takes off at 6 in the morning. And then once you get off that, get off of that plane, you have to get on a van or something like that, or a bus, and you go someplace else. You're there for a couple of hours, and you're doing that day after day for weeks at a time, and so on and so on. And then people talk about how glamorous it is to be on tour as a musician, and you on tour buses and so on and so on. What they don't tell you is that there might be 14 people on a bus, on a single bus, and and so you have these compartments that I call them coffins or whatever. They're literally only about 3 or 4 feet high, maybe about 6 feet long and whatnot. And if you get waken up, if you get startled, you jump up and then you hit your head on something like that. You know what I mean? The mattresses aren't that comfortable. So my first time being on a bus tour, I actually had, it was like my first signs that I had a bad back. You know what I mean? It can be grueling, especially when you're talking about those days when you might be up 20-something hours. Like I said, getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, doing the travel. Sometimes you're going straight from the airport to a venue and you're there all day and so on and so on. You're only coming back to the hotel to spend the night to try the whole thing all over again and whatnot. And it gets to be brutal. And so sometimes the best thing for me is just to stay home. You know what I mean? And it's like, but really it's a blessing to be able to do music for a living. But it really isn't all fun and games, because the travel a lot of times is the hardest part of it.
Thank you, Damien. Anyone else want to respond? Michael.
Yeah, so, today was a good example because my man Mario Crew in the back playing drums, he had a gig last night, right, Mario? He had a gig last night at the Zinc Bar in New York City. He played until, I guess, midnight. He got back to where we're from, where we're close to Philadelphia, but we were in Jersey, where we met, and he drove out of our meeting spot and took a 3-hour nap, and then waited for us to get there with the van, and then he took another 3-hour nap to get here. So my man, give it up for Mario Crew. He's putting it in. He's here. He was on time. And the funny part is, we waited. I'm like, where's Mario? I'm like, it's 6:30. Where's Mario at? Somebody call him. And we're waiting around for probably a good, 40 minutes? And then we all realized he was parked right next to us, but he had his chair back, and he was sleeping. We didn't even know he was in there. So he's road dogging it tonight. So for an hour-and-a-half show, you put in a lot of hours of travel. So that's definitely probably the hardest part.
All right, thank you, Carl. Thank you. Do we have any more questions? Yes.
One's for Damien. Do you still play flute?
Damien, do you still play flute?
Absolutely. One of the other artists that I play with is Jill Scott. So I'm actually in the horn section as her flute player, and also I'm on a bunch of recordings like what's the name of the song? Blow the Whistle is an upcoming singer from Carl Cox. He's featured me on flute. Then you can hear me on other albums with like Maysa, and I've actually played flute for like Justin Timberlake, Common, rapper named Common, Jay-Z, and so on and so on. But yeah, I still play a bunch of flute.
One more.
Who are all your musical inspirations?
Your musical inspirations, gentlemen.
And influences?
I'm going to start. Okay.
I'll just start because I was literally just talking about this. When I was playing sax, shortly thereafter I started learning it in 4th grade. Right around 7th, I started getting serious, and my teacher handed me an album. He says, "Look, this is the album you need to start listening to." And it was Gerald Veasley, who's a famous sax player. He played with Phil Collins and amazing solo artist himself. And he had this album called Live at Berlin West, and I can probably hear every song in my head from that album. And that started me with the smooth jazz kind of genre. And then from there, I kind of broke into Michael Brecker, the late Michael Brecker, Randy Brecker Brothers, and then I started doing some other heavy jazz fusion players like Bob Berg and Bob Mintzer and all these really famous players, the Yellow Jackets, and that's how kind of I started. Anybody else want to?
I can name a lot of the normal people that you would think, like Charlie Parker, John Coltrane, Herbie Hancock, Earth, Wind & Fire, Big Daddy Kane, and so on and so on. I listened to and I composed like a lot of different music, and I was trained classically also. So people like Paganini, Bach, Tchaikovsky, and so on and so on, all those. I also had really, as a youngster, I had a really good relationship with Grover Washington Jr. and a flautist named James Walker. He was the head of a band called Free Flight. And they did like a lot of jazz fusion, but it was fused with classical, you know what I mean? And Hubert lost people like that. But I think some of my biggest influences were my peers. So one of the people who really inspired, well, a couple of people inspired me to start learning how to play jazz. A guy named Antonio Parker, Louis Taylor. We were contemporaries. Christian McBride. We were in programs together in Philly. John Roberts. But I was actually inspired by a lot of my peers, people who I thought that were way better than me, and I was like, oh, I got to be able to play what they're playing and so on and so on. But yeah, a lot of it were just people that, and some people that you probably would never even have, like some street musicians who were really good. I used to hang out with them. So yeah, but there's a lot of people who really you would never even know who I've been inspired by.
See, this is a part of the event that we really want to connect with the artists. This information that you've received thus far brings you in closer to not just the featured artist who is Carl Cox, but all his bandmates as well. Isn't that a beautiful thing? Beautiful thing. Any more questions? Yes, sir.
All you guys from the Philadelphia area?
Are you guys from Philly, South Jersey, Philly, and everyone's from Philly and he's from South Jersey. Any more questions? Chief?
What kind of saxophone is that?
I got to be careful how I answer this one. So this is actually, people that don't know, they're like, well, your saxophone ain't too shiny. People are like attracted to saxophones that are shiny. It's like a fishing lure, and it's like, ooh, what's that? That's got to sound good. But this one looks dirty, but it's dirty because it's from 1965, and it's called a Selmer Mark VI, which is like the Stradivarius of violins. So these are really kind of one-of-a-kind instruments, real serious players like really kind of search them out, and I really like that vintage sound that you can get. It's like kind of a special tone with the brass that they don't make anymore from France. So yeah, I'm gonna need security after this.
Carl said he's gonna need security after this. Well, you're all set. Security's right there. We got West Hartford PD in the house. Give them a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. This wouldn't happen without these guys either. Chief?
I guess no one else has any questions. But
any more questions?
Lord, do each of you play multiple instruments, and if so, what are they?
Did each of you play multiple instruments, and if so, what are they?
I'm going to answer for Mario. Mario is primarily known as a drummer, but he also plays keyboards, bass, guitar. He played a little trumpet too, right? Yeah, he played a little trumpet, and he's also a very he's an amazing writer and composer in a bunch of different genres, and he's a really good lyric writer, whether it's songs, raps, poetry, and I believe that if he put his mind to it, he can even write a novel. Yeah, and he actually sings a little bit too. And of course, I started off with flute, play saxophone, and also keys.
I hope you don't play too much saxophone, because that's going to be a problem for me. Put me out of a job. But I play, with woodwinds, primarily, most woodwind players do double. And a double basically means that you can play another woodwind instrument. So I do play a little bit of flute, not on Damon's level, but I can make it sound good. And I play all the other saxophones, soprano, alto sax, and a little bit of clarinet because I'm also a school educator too. And I play decent keyboards. I can get around on keyboards a little bit too. So kind of works all together for the songwriting process to kind of have a little keyboard skill set.
Bad man, Carl. And you're going to hear this bad man play in a little while. But this element, I tell you, this is key. Because a lot of times we go to shows, we go to performances, and you know, the curtains come up, the crowd is, the act is introduced, and after the show, that's it. Am I right? So you don't know, so you're left with questions that you want to answer, or just you want to dig in a little bit and find out or have some understanding about what the artists and the musicians represent. So we feel that this is a big part of this today, so I'm glad that you guys participated in this. Also, I want to make mention that Carl, he is an educator, and Carl, is this your 4th or 5th year of winning the school competition? Yeah, your jazz band competition. This guy, his students have won the competition in Deptford, New Jersey for like the four straight years?
Fourth state championship.
Big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
Fourth year, yeah, we're doing well. And we used to go to Boston. Berkeley School of Music used to hold a national competition, and we used to do that one. And they've won that one 3 times, but they since recently gotten rid of that one because of budget cuts. But that was always a nice trip to go to Boston. Not too far from here, not too far.
They have a lot of chaperones.
Yeah, that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah, that's a whole nother thing. How you doing? Chief. Ladies and gentlemen, Chief Riddick.
All right, thank you, audience. Those were awesome questions and very insightful responses. Megan from the Bridge, can you come on up and have a few words? Megan Pulte, come on up, Megan. Without the support from the Bridge, we also wouldn't be here, so thank you for that great opportunity.
Good afternoon, everyone. How's everyone doing today? All right. The Bridge is very pleased to once again offer WeHa United in Jazz in collaboration with the West Hartford Police Department and Wasco. We are grateful you could all make it out on this beautiful day. So glad we didn't get the rain today. My name is Megan Pulte, and I am the Clinical Director of Community and School Services at the Bridge Family Center in West Hartford. The Bridge is a comprehensive regional nonprofit agency that provides a broad range of services for children's families and individuals throughout the greater Hartford area. You may be familiar with us as we have several clinics around town that service youth, adults, and families. The Bridge is happy to sponsor the WeHa United Jazz Concert through our Turning Points Grant. The Turning Points Grant allows us to offer life skills programming that provides critical interventions for at-risk youth from ages 4 to 20 to help them lead lives free from violence. The Bridge served around 1,000 youth in the last year through this program. Some examples of programming include individual mentoring, the West Hartford Teen Center, children's theater play and workshops, and Kindergarten 1, 2, 3, and Me. We would like to thank State Representative Tammy Exum for all of her efforts to support the Bridge through the Turning Points Grant. With us today, we have teens from our Teen Leadership Committee in the back, which is run through our Teen Center. Yes, please give them a big round of applause. They're the ones making the popcorn and cotton candy. The West Hartford Teen Center Teen Leadership Committee is committed to developing today's teens into tomorrow's leaders by creating a strong, diverse, and supportive community of youth through social and recreational connections, life skills, and community service. Also with us today are some youth ambassadors from the West Hartford Prevention Partnership. Please give them a big hand. The partnership promotes optimal health and well-being by fostering community-wide events, activities, and awareness campaigns centered around the importance of promoting mental health and preventing substance misuse across the lifespan. Youth are a crucial part of our community, and it is imperative we give them opportunities to lead and grow, so we really appreciate all the youth helping out and attending today. Once again, thank you all for being here. Please stop by our table for more information on the Bridge and enjoy the show.
Okay, last but certainly not least, Portia Weisbachman, come on up from Wasco.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Portia Weisbachman, and I stand before you today representing the West Hartford African American Social and Cultural Organization, or commonly known as WASCO. Many of WASCO's community activities are in collaboration with the town of West Hartford, the West Hartford Police Department, and other community organizations. That is what brings us here today for United in Jazz, an event spearheaded by our late President Earl Exum. In addition to this fabulous event today, we also co-sponsor other town-wide events, including the Martin Luther King Jr. Day celebration, Juneteenth, and the Black Business Expo. WASCO began in 1979 when African American residents came together to speak out about challenges their children faced in our West Hartford schools. What started as a small gathering soon grew into a vital community force that gave our voices strength. We pushed for more African American teachers, firefighters, police officers, and we opened the door for honest conversations about race and equity in West Hartford. Socially, we've celebrated our culture with cookouts, happy hours, holiday gatherings, and opened our arms in service, donating to food pantries, family centers, and homes for children. In 2003, we raised funds to restore the headstone of Bristow, an enslaved man who bought his freedom in 1776. Our efforts helped inspire the naming of Bristow Middle School here in West Hartford. If you see the bench on the lawn of First Church in honor of Lemuel Haynes, that too was a project facilitated by WASCO, honoring the first West Hartford Black man in the U.S. to be ordained as a minister. We honor the past, we serve in the present, and we inspire the future. And as we look ahead, our mission remains the same: to uplift, to connect, and to ensure that our community continues to thrive. Please stop by our table today and spin the wheel to answer a question about Black jazz and West Hartford history. Thank you.
Thank you. Once again, give it up for Wasco. Give it up. As you well just found out, that they play a big role in this city here and do a lot of good things for all of us. We lost Earl Exum 3 years ago, right before the first festival, United in Jazz here, WeHa. And you know, I know it's been a struggle for everyone, for his family, and a struggle for us as well, because he was so important as a board member and part of our introduction to Chief Riddick and our conversations that we had. He was always there. So let's give him a moment of silence for Earl Exum, please. Thank you, because he is with us. He is with us. He's with us in our hearts, and he's going to be with us today as these guys right behind me get ready to light up this community square here, this outdoor event center, community, whatever you want to call it. We're WeHa, West Hartford, Connecticut, right? Give yourselves a big round of applause for being here. Coming up right now, once again, is a gentleman named Carl Cox, saxophone extraordinaire. You hear him on XM radio, you hear him on satellite channel 66 Watercolors. You hear all these guys playing. They're actually studio musicians as well. They're playing on other tracks that you've heard artists, and I just can't say enough about it. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, give a big round of applause, a WeHa United in Jazz applause for Carl Cox and the band.
How y'all feeling? You guys feeling that T's groove? That's T's groove. So that's a little fun when we do. We kind of get our fingers warming up and kind of get warmed up for the gig. You know, it's a fun tune to play over. But we're gonna switch it up a little bit. We're gonna do some stuff that maybe you are familiar with, maybe you've heard before, and then we're gonna do some original stuff if that's okay with you guys. So we're gonna do one. We're gonna do a famous tune by the group War. What was their big song? A little quiz for you. What was War's one of their biggest songs? You know. Oh, my man Al Taylor got it. He got it. I don't have a prize though, man, so I ain't got nothing for you. We're gonna do a famous tune called World is a Ghetto, but we're gonna do it with our little flavor. is the ghetto. Sometimes that's true. That's true, that's real. You guys all feeling all right? You're not too hot, right? It's nice out there. I love this spot. It's just like cancels the sun. We got a beautiful spot here. I love this square. I'm gonna have to come back and visit one day soon. Bring some friends and hang out. This is beautiful. I love it. I think my keyboard player is eyeballing Kill Ones. He's like, you ever have Kill Ones? I'm like, no. He goes, man, look, the last time I had that, I was in a coma for like an hour. I'm like, man, I need to try that. I think that looks good. I never had Kill Ones, so that's on my list. That's on my list. So we're going to go back to an original tune that you guys probably haven't heard unless you listen to XM Radio, Watercolors 66. They played this tune a lot. This is the original from, I think it's my second album. And I should give a shout out to one of my dear friends, Helen Taylor. Where are you, Helen? Where is she at? Oh, there she is. Give it up for Helen. That's Al Taylor's wife. She's amazing. She brought us food, and she brought us drinks, and she brought us brownies, cookies. And she spoiled us. She spoiled us. So thank you for your hospitality. She is also selling my CDs. If you guys like some of the tunes you've heard, she'll be selling CDs over there. Wait a minute. Oh, over here. Okay. Oh, yeah, behind the West Hartford Police Department, we have some CDs. And if you feel like you want to support the cause and you like what you heard, go purchase some CDs. I'll be over there after the show, and I can get a chance to meet you guys. So we're going to do a tune. This is called Breaking Away. And the inspiration really behind this tune, I'm a lover of really one of the famous jazz players who played with Miles Davis. Does anybody know who Miles Davis is? Oh, all right, we got some hands. That's a good sign. So a really famous bass player. Well, he got famous because he played with Miles by the name of Marcus Miller. And I've been listening to a lot of his songs, and you know, a lot of inspiration came from him and David Sanborn, the late great David Sanborn. And we wanted to come up with a funky bass solo and a really catchy funky tune in honor of the great Marcus Miller. So this is called Breaking Away. Give it up for Barrier Crew sweating back there for y'all on the drum set. He's sweating back there. He's working hard for you guys. He's working hard. And he got up early for me. So I'm very grateful for that. And give it up for my band, Damon Bennett, please, on the keyboards. And my man back here, we call him CB, Charlie Baldwin on that bass. We're having fun up here, guys, if you can't tell. We're having a great time. And we're just grateful to have an audience here supporting the cause. And this is such a great event. So we're gonna do another jazz, a very famous jazz standard by a great saxophone player. Never had the fortune of actually meeting him, but I've listened to him many, many times on the radio, YouTube, you name it. And he had a famous song called Cold Duck Time. Okay, we got some jazz lovers out there. And so we're gonna do our version of this great classic for you all. Yes, thank you so much. Well, cold duck time there. So we're going to do another, let's do another original. And this one was actually written with my dear friend Damon Bennett when I first started trying to get access to radio, and I was looking for songs to play. And he came up with this one song, gave me a groove, and that's how I usually write. Like, I don't know how everybody else writes, you know. I just kind of was always afraid of doing it and coming up with originals, but I work best when I have somebody has an idea of a groove or like a feel and a couple chord changes. And then what I find is that I sing in my car, and my wife usually stares at me because I'm not a singer, and she's like, "Oh, that sounds awful." But I usually get ideas on my phone as I'm in my car listening to these blank tracks, like a blank piece of paper. And then I'll go play it a little on the piano, and then I'll eventually put it to my sax and coming up with some ideas. And this one was really one of the biggest songs of my career thus far, and it really did well on the radio, Billboard, and all that stuff, and I'm really grateful for it. With my man Damon, who supplied the track, and we wrote this together. It's actually on my first album called Thankful, and this is called Elevation. That was our original song, me and Damon. Give it up for my good friend Damon. Bringing that song to my attention. Coming together, we collabed on that, and it's always funny because, you know, we've collabed on a lot, and honestly, I owe Damon really a lot of gratitude because, you know, we've been friends for so long, touring the country and, you know, playing with a lot of different artists. I said, listen, it was during COVID, I want to come up with my very first solo album. And, you know, the first thing he said was, well, it's about time. And I said, well, yeah, man, but I need some help. And he was the first guy to actually step up and say, I got you. And I didn't hear from him. I'm thinking, yeah, he doesn't really want to do this. And I'm like, I probably stink or something, you know, he don't work with me. I get a text message of like 3 songs, ideas, and, you know, just like that. And then I didn't hear anything, and I just sent him back, you know, 1 track. And then he calls me and he goes, yo. And just silence. Just silence. And in Damon's world, that is like amazing that you got yo. Because he doesn't really say a whole lot, but when he does, and he goes, yo. Pause. Let me say something. Pause. I don't know what you ate for breakfast, but that was crazy, right? And then we had a partnership and we came up and we wrote a lot of songs together. So, mad respect for this guy back here. He helped me when, you know, I was just getting started. So please give it up for Damon. Damon Bennett. We call him, he has an alias name, you can look him up. He's Dizzy Fingers, Mr. Dizzy Fingers, as you can see. And you can find him on Instagram and see him with Jill Scott playing flute on tour. I think they're doing an NPR Tiny Desk, something like that coming up with Jill Scott. You'll see him playing the flutes and doing all that crazy stuff. So, let's see, how much time do we have? Because I'm not looking. We got, how much time we got? Like an hour? 45? All right, we're gonna do a little tribute to one of Philadelphia's biggest stars, really, I would say. And that's the late, great Grover Washington Jr. Anybody familiar with that guy? Okay, we got some fans, yes, yes. So in Philly, they have a big mural, and there's a big picture of him on the wall. And every time I drive by that and I see that, it's just, you know, thank you for the music. I got a chance to meet him once, right before he had passed away, and we spoke briefly. I was still in college at the University of the Arts, and he gave me a bunch of tips about playing the saxophone, and shortly thereafter he had unfortunately left us, and I was asked by the dean of the school to play for his memorial that was held at the Academy of Music a few months after. And I had the great fortune of playing up there for his memorial, and they brought artists in from all over the world that wanted to honor Grover Washington. So it was special for me to be a part of that. So we're gonna do one of his biggest songs called One Light.
Charlie. Come on, Charlie.
Yes, Wine Lake. Love paying tribute to amazing artists that bring some really incredible music to fruition, really. So you guys good? You guys all right out there? You guys getting tired? We ain't got work tomorrow, so, you know, that's a good sign. I gotta drive 3 hours home. But it's all good, it's worth it, because I love this. I could do this anyway. This is great. Please give it up for also my good dear friend who's always been supporting me from the beginning, the great Al Taylor. Let me tell you something about this guy. So this guy, you know, when he finds an artist that he thinks I'm gonna bust on him, I'm gonna pay you a tribute, man. I'm gonna call him out. Oh, here we go. So Al has helped so many great artists in this industry. You know, as you know, jazz is not the most popular genre of music, but it's still a very important part of American culture, really. I mean, it began here, and it's really, really popular overseas, of course. And it still has a great following here, and we want to try to keep the tradition alive. And Al has been such a great person to advocate for artists that he really believes in, loves, and he gives them opportunities. And I just want to thank Al for giving me a chance when I first began my journey on this. You know? He's been doing it. And you'll see him, he's wearing a Berks Jazz Fest. I've been lucky enough to do that festival a few times with some really incredible artists, including, I had a great special guest appearance with the Pieces of a Dream. And that was a great show. And Al always does a little DJ thing, highlights up-and-coming artists at Berks. So if you get a chance, and near the middle, I think it's the middle of March next year, March 20th through the 29th. It's the largest jazz festival in the country, right here in Pennsylvania, and Reading, PA. And Al always goes there and supports all the upcoming artists. So this is a great opportunity. So we're gonna do a tribute to one of my favorite saxophonists, other than Grover, who came after, and he was a great alto saxophone player, as a matter of fact. And he had his own TV show, and we just lost him recently. Does anybody know who this artist might be? Yeah, who said that? Who was my man? Who said that? Oh, yeah, he knows. And David Sanborn played with a lot of great famous people, had his own sound, and we want to pay tribute to him as well for giving us all his musical genius. And this was one of his really fun songs to play, and we enjoyed playing it. It's called Snakes. David Sanborn. Thank you, David Sanborn. Nick Marcus Miller. All right. How much time we got? I can't keep track of time. How much? All right. So we're going to do two more for you guys. I think we have time for two more. Is that okay with you guys? I'm going to catch my breath for a minute. I'm really, I'm getting old for this stuff. Wow. I need to start like going to the gym and doing some like cardio, man. El, you want to go with me? I just had a cookie, so it didn't help me. But so we're gonna do two songs to finish out, and this is my latest project. going back to my roots from Philly, learning from all these amazing musicians in Philadelphia, going back to my college days and stuff. So one of the things about travel that we were talking about actually earlier, right? Travel is one of the hardest things. So sometimes we have a lot of time in our hands and we don't know what to do with it. And we're sitting in a train station a lot of times, waiting for a train, and nobody's there. It's probably 4:30 a.m., 5 a.m. And we're sitting around looking at each other, looking at people, the very few people that are there. And we have, what station do you guys have here? What's the name of your station here? What train station? You guys have a train station here, right? What is it called? Union Station? Okay, so today, this song is going to be called Union Station, because it's your train station. But the original title that we had in Philly, does anybody know? Yes, thank you. This is called 30th Street Station, but we'll call it Union Station today.
Carl Cox, you look like you got some new fans here, bro. Does Carl have some new fans here at West Hartford? And remember, that song is on the new album, right?
Yeah, that's the latest album. That's called Union Station, right? Yeah, 30th Street Station.
30th Station. Make sure you pick this album up, because that's our artists. We have to support our artists so they continue to make great music. Please, pick up the table right over there. Emily's under there. Raise your hand, Em. Raise your hand. Raise your hand.
We got one more for you guys. We're going to do the title track of the newest album. You just heard 30th Street Station, but this is called The Philly Strut. I hope you guys enjoyed yourselves, and thanks again to West Hartford, bringing us in, Chief of Police. You guys are sticking around and doing some jazz. Maybe you haven't really heard that much jazz, maybe you like it now, maybe you don't. But I think we all enjoyed the night, a beautiful night, Saturday. And thank you for being a great audience. This is called Philly Strut.
Give it up. Give it up. Come on now. Give it up.
Give it up, ladies and gentlemen, on the keyboards. Mario Crew on the drums. My man Charlie Baldwin on the bass. Guys, have a great night. Thank you so much for being here, audience. I sign the CD over there. Thank you guys.
Please, let's support the artists. Let's buy their CDs now. Come on now. We'll be over there signing them in a minute. Chief. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming out today. You don't have to run. We're going to play some music. Carl's going to be signing some CDs. We hope that you purchase them. Let's have a good time. And just reflect on this great day. Thank you all for coming. My name is Al Taylor. And it's been a pleasure once again here in West Hartford. I'm telling you, just WeHa. It's going to grow and grow and grow and get bigger and bigger. Make sure you spread the word. Let people know what we've done here today, what you've been a part of today. And we're look towards vision where we can go, okay? Thank you. Let's get some CDs, family.